Hi guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. We are the Bebunkings, and here at Trinity Relationships we discuss relationships and family. So we'll be starting a new series today titled Distance and Marriage. And in this first slot we'll be discussing how distance has affected our marriage so far. So for school reasons we had to be distant from each other in the last year, and we've noticed some major changes in our relationship and in all other things concerning us. So stay tuned.
Okay, welcome back again. So today we're looking at, as you said, about how distance can affect your relationship, because we feel that there are some things we never really consider how distance can affect a marriage. So when my wife started school, she had to go and specialize, and we're in two different towns. And I believe in the aspect of distance, there are different levels, but in our own, we're in the same country, but different towns. And I believe that distance affects every relationship mostly negatively. When you see in Genesis chapter 8, I think Genesis chapter 3 verse 8, the Bible talks how God usually comes in the cool of the morning to meet with Adam. And I believe that if God himself came to meet with man, and he also came the second time very clearly when he came in the form of a man, Jesus Christ, to have a better relationship with man, it means distance can really affect our relationship. And the further apart we are, the more negatively it affects our relationship. And so today we'll be looking at the areas in which we have noticed, just major areas we have noticed that distance has been affecting us. And the first on the list is our relationship with one another. So I realized that when we started having distance relationship, many things changed, because my wife and I have been together for at least maybe 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, because right from school.
Yes, we became friends in level 2 when we were in level 2 in our medical school. And after that, we got married. We were together for 3 years. That's about like 6 plus 3. That's about 9
years.
So 9 years. We've been together for 9 years. That means we see ourselves most of the time. And we were working in the same hospital, so we leave home together, we come back together. So that was our context. And then when she went back to school, there was this immediate change, and I noticed that our communication started changing, because normally maybe I will not text her in the morning because we're together. We get up in the morning, we speak, and then we go to the hospital, we're talking in the car, and this kind of in this context. And then when he started her specialization exam, the tendency again to start texting us when we're dating was still getting new, and I realized that it began affecting our relationship with one another. So what do you have to say about that?
About our relationship with one another, like, I think we got back to the days where we were in a relationship, but while we're in a relationship, I think it was still different, because most of the times during the week, except when we're on holidays, we were together.
Yeah, that was
and
a difference.
When we got married, like, it's the same space. Even during work, when I'm on break, I'm going to batch into his office, and sometimes when he's consulting some patients, I'll be there, and sometimes I'm going to be giving my opinion, and we always had something to talk about. Then even when I get done with work early, sometimes I'm going to just hang around and wait for him to finish. Then sometimes still during break, we are going to go to the hospital canteen together and share lunch together. So I really miss those times. So now I'm back, sometimes I feel alone, because sometimes you want to send him a text and he may not be available at the moment because he's doing some other things. Sometimes he wants to call me, but I was for night shift, and so I come back and I'm tired, and once I hit the bed, it's like several hours straight, so he's unable to reach me. So our relationship with each other has really been affected, and the main aspect that has been affected is communication. But I think
only communication,
not only communication,
I think
the
aspect of just seeing somebody, it makes a lot of difference, because even if I'm tired from work and I'm coming back, I know that when I'm coming back, I'm going to see her, and when I'm getting up in the morning, we will see her, and there's always something we could talk about. But I feel like the information we really shared together was not there, because there are some things that until you see somebody physically, you cannot get to discuss those content and really go deep. You may just give a text, but to be typing, I feel like those aspects were absent.
And given that he's more of the physical type, that's why the aspect of that physical aspect for you to give all the gist. But me, I could tell you a whole story over the phone. But my husband is not like that, and so since he's not that way, whenever we come together, I now realize that there are several things that he's not telling me, and I'm like, but when did this happen? When did this other one happen? Or sometimes he will just give you some heads up about something. Then when you meet now, he starts giving you the details, and I'm like, so why do you not just give me all these details over the phone? Because to me, I will not find it stressful or find it absurd to give you like a full picture of everything I was there over the phone. But to him, he's going to really prefer to see you and do all the gimmicks while telling you the stories and the rest. So I think that part has really been affected.
So I think that if you're in a distance relationship, you should understand how each of you perceive distance. It will really help you. So the second aspect I think it affected us greatly was on the aspect of sex. Boy, I mean, when I think, you see, when my wife was going back, some people started making comments about us trying to see how we could unite ourselves with time. But to me, we're like, nah, I've been single now. What's the difference between me being single and now? It's not a big deal. And those kind of thoughts I had, and until when we started having a distance, and I mean, after about, I think 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I started realizing that my body started changing, my perception of things started changing. When I'm going down the street, before, let's say when I'm walking down the street, I will not even notice what the next girl is putting on, or what, I mean, it will not really catch my attention on how somebody's dressed. It will not really be my focus. But I realized that as there was time, like that where I've not had regular sex, for example, I started noticing that, oh, this guy is wearing pink. I mean, like, what's happening to my mind? I'm like, this one is weird. Something is wrong. I mean, and that's when I noticed that distance is something that people don't really say it affects you. And sexually, it's a big deal, which I did not really think it would have been the case, because I feel like I've been single. I mean, it was not a problem. Now if I'm married, it may not be a problem, but I realized that no, it's not true. It's not true. So what was your own experience?
For me, regarding sex, those times as a woman where you're like, okay, sometimes it's like you're having sex, more of dutiful sex, but it's true that the pleasurable part is there. So I was like, okay, I'm going to your own days. It will not be a big deal to me. To me, I felt like it's not going to be a big deal. By the way, I was also single at some point. So let's just consider that we are back to our days of singlehood. You just need to reset your mind. You just need to format your brain and be like, okay, I'm in school and stuff. But I realized that after a while, I'm like, hey, something is not okay. Something is going wrong. And when I go to chat with my husband, I think you are the one that got me to see that I was supposed to be having sex, and maybe that's why I'm having those changes. That's why I'm
mood swings. Yes,
mood
getting
swings.
Angry very easily.
I'm getting irritable, but I never really saw it that way. And in terms of noticing other people, when you talk about noticing other people, I think that's why the Bible is very clear about it. That unless both of you consent, maybe to go on a fast or something, you should come together quickly. I think that this is one of the aspects that helps me to see that God actually is an all-knowing God. Because no matter how strong we think we are as humans, God provides a way out. And once you rely on your strength, you see that you will just start taking a tangential path. So because the Bible says that we should get together quickly, I believe that it's wisdom, and practically I'm seeing what the Bible meant.
Yeah, that's true. I remember sometimes when she started giving some funny complaints, I'm like, at first I was wondering why is she giving the complaint, and then when I got to start reading about this and trying to understand the changes that we're having, I realized that when you have had sex maybe regularly, I mean, you have been having sex with your partner, and that move occurs, if you are not, it's going to affect you. Yeah. So it's something that you should consider, and something that we noticed that was like, man, I'd never really taken note of. So
I'm surprised that people don't talk about it.
I tell you, I mean, personally, I'm like, God, I mean,
Hey, I was so shocked. I've seen several couples that have been practicing distance, and the only thing they seem to talk about is that, like, in general, they say, oh, you guys should struggle to come together. You should struggle to be in the same town. Oh, what about the children? Who is taking care of the children? Okay. Is it okay? Like, that's everything they talk about. And nobody seems to talk about the area of sex, how distance affects your sex life.
And I think that's a big deal for me. Personally,
Yes.
I think it's a big deal. And I think that is one of the consequence of infidelity.
And no matter how do I put it? There's some couples that can have sex every day. Even if you have
Just
sex
once
once a week.
Or once a
I
month.
think this aspect is going to affect you. So if you are considering a distance relationship, think about this.
Yeah. And the next aspect is the possibility of having an intruder.
Yes.
Yes. I think with distance relationship, it's easier for you to have a third party aside God into your relationship very easily. And for me, this is where couples are being unfaithful. And I know that many people consider unfaithfulness is maybe when your partner has something intimate with another person. For me, that's not unfaith. That's not really the case. Because if you look at the Bible, God sees unfaithfulness when we give his place to another person. And for me, that's the same thing with marriage. When you give your partner space or time to another person, especially of the opposite sex, that's already unfaithfulness in your marriage, because that's where you find how infidelity creeps in. I realize that, let's say my wife and I usually have moments where we discussed, and when she wasn't there, there's that tendency to find somebody also to discuss with. And without knowing, if you don't understand what is happening, you may fill your partner's space with another person, and worst of all is the opposite sex. Is that creating serious problem? And before you know it, if you continue like that for a while, you start having some feelings for another person that's not your partner. Not really that you may do it consciously, but unconsciously you start feeling for that person, because unconsciously you have given your partner space to that person, and before you know it, you start doing the things that you were that attributed only to your partner to that person. So I think that is really a case of an intruder. And also, I realized that when my wife went away, the attitude of the opposite sex, I mean, some ladies around me, single ladies, their attitude changed, and that was one of the things that got into my mind. Like, well, this thing is something else.
That's why I'm always fighting. Your ring. Where your ring? It's true that the ring is just a symbol. It's true that it doesn't really prove commitment, but some people respect the fact that you are wearing the ring. At least reduces the number of those ladies around him. Today, this one. I'm like, hey, watch out, please. It's my territory, whether from far or from here. It's my territory.
So what was your idea regards to the third party? How do you, in your own area, how did you experience that?
In my own area, going back to Yaoundé, because I've lived in Yaoundé for several years. I was born in Yaoundé. So I got exposed back to former
chatters.
Yes, former chatters.
Or crushes.
Yes, or crushes. So you can imagine me meeting one of these crushes, and he's like, "Oh, how have you been? Where have you been? You've thrown me this and that. Can we meet up?" Imagine that I just say, "Yes, we can meet up." I think that is going to be a big door of infidelity that I'll be opening to my marriage. So the foundation of your marriage is very, very important. So having that at the back of my mind, anybody who was asking me out in the days, anybody I was crushing on in the days, or a relationship, when I see you, hello, hi, and except for anything really, really important, I don't see myself getting back to you, or we having a come together or an outing and the rest. Sometimes when I want to go out, I go out alone or with my few friends. After our work day, we plan something and we go out, we have fun, and I go back to my house. And when you're talking about distance, I remember a sister shared with me.
Okay.
So she went to an office for work purposes. So she went there, and this guy was so nice. And before she knew it, he was asking her out. And when she was like, no, she cannot do such a thing, and that, by the way, is even a married man, he told her that about the marriage, that his family is in a different town, so it's no big deal. You can imagine. So distance has a way that it can favor unfaithfulness.
Yes.
And if there was this little seed of unfaithfulness in you, distance is just going to help you to grow, to germinate, if you are not careful.
And so I think that here, one of the key markers is that you don't give your partner's time. Even if you are far or near, your partner's time is your partner's time. Just as God encourages us to meditate on the scriptures day and night, that's God's time. So one of the ways we keep faithfulness to God is almost similarly how we keep faithfulness with man. So there are things I cannot take God's time and give my wife. It's not possible. And the same vice versa. The same as now I realize that my wife has a space in my life, has a time that I must give to her, and nobody else has occupied that time. That's where you start fighting on faithfulness in your relationship, especially with distance. The next aspect is the bonding with the kids. If you have children, distance will greatly affect the way you bond with your children. I remember when my wife came back, it was kind of funny because when she went, she made a while. The children when she came back, the children were relating with her in a very, bizarre way. Like, who is this?
So bad.
Who is this? Who is coming? So they can easily forget you, and you grow apart. Just same as with your partner and your kids, you grow apart. The more distant you are, the longer you are in a distance relationship, the more you grow apart from your partner and from your children. So you come and meet some people that they may resemble you, but you realize they don't know them. Neither do they know you. The only similarity may be your physical appearance, but in terms of understanding, because with children, you get to know them more, both their strengths and their weaknesses, when you spend appropriate time with them. But when you are apart from them, they will be growing without you, and you may really have very little about them. So it's something that you should consider.
Considering my bonding with the kids, I really felt bad the first time I came back, because I spent like a while before I came back. And on coming back, like, my son just looked at me from a distance, and I felt like, who is this? Like, in his mind, he's asking that, who is this? It's my daughter who tried to be like, mommy, and that was it. I felt so bad. Then sometimes you get them crying, and it's like, I'm not able to understand why they are crying. Yes. Or my daughter, who was still learning how to speak, she'll be saying some things, and it's like, I'm not understanding what she's saying. But her father and the aunts were in the house, will be like, this is what she's saying, this is what she's saying, this is why he's crying, this is why she's moody. And I was like, really, like, it felt so strange. And when I would come, usually like the first 2 days, that would be the mood. Then by the last day that I'm to spend with them, they start being clingy, and before you know it, I've left. And so the cycle goes on and on and on and on. There wasn't a time that I was considering quitting school, because I felt like I could not take the distance anymore. Like, I felt like, okay, my family, they're apart. I just felt overwhelmed, especially concerning that area, and I wanted to quit. But my husband encouraged me to continue, and we are seeing how to fight the distance, and I believe things are getting better.
Yeah. So the next area that really affected us is the area of finance. Yeah. You're in two different towns. The expenditure will be more, especially if people have the commitment to see yourself regularly, maybe from calls, from internet. There's a lot that goes on to maintain a distance relationship, and finances is one of the things that suffers in a distance relationship, because if you have to rent 2 homes, if you have to maybe fuel 2 cars differently from 2 different towns. For our case, we're going to the same hospital. We go to church together. Everything was together. So in that aspect, let's say if you have 2 different cars, it's easier because the fuel will be different. And then we have maybe similar friends. So when we're going, we just go together. So there's some of those things that we could curb in terms of finances. But now, because we're in a distance relationship, you always have to have maybe your internet on. You have to have credit to call. You have to have, another budget for another person differently. So, but when you're together, the bulk buying reduces a lot. But distance relationships really, really impinge on your finance if you want to make a good use of it.
Considering the finances, I think one of the ways your finances are affected is in the fact that, for example, I used to do some work at the side. But now, since I am back to school, the time I used to give to that side hustle, I need to give more of that time to my school. So indirectly, the family income has been affected. We believe that your money is my money and my money is your money. So at the end of the month, we gather our money together and we see how to spend it as a family. So since that's our case, you see that there's a direct impact on our finances as a family.
So if you enjoy our video, please do like, subscribe and share, and it'll be make sure you watch the part 2 on how to handle a long distance relationship successfully. So stay tuned and thank you. Bye.
Subscribe.